Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining me again. Can somebody just give me a thumbs up in the chat or the comments to let me know that you can see and hear me okay? Thanks, Paul. Good to see you again. Now, before we begin, I want to put some context around today's session because today's session is slightly different to previous sessions where the goal's been to share with you strategies to help you improve your business. But today is to help you improve your business by you becoming the leader that your future business needs. Because after more than 40 years now in business, yeah, I'm not old, and nearly 20 years coaching business owners, I get more and more convinced of something. Businesses rarely stop growing because they run out of opportunities. More often than not, they stop growing because they've reached the limits of the person leading them. They've hit a leadership lid. Imagine this for a second. There are two businesses. They're selling very similar products to similar customers in the same town, but they're producing completely different results. So one might grow, but one might struggle. One's able to attract great people, but the other one can't recruit. One's got healthy profits, the other is constantly worrying about cash flow. Why does that happen? Now, when I ask people that question, immediately they point to outside forces, things like the market, the economy, the competition, sometimes luck. And yes, sometimes those things do play a part, but in my experience, they're rarely the deciding factor. For me, the biggest difference is usually the leader. And that's not because one works harder than the other one, but because one thinks differently. They lead differently. They make decisions differently. In other words, they're operating from a different operating system. And that's what I'd like to explore in more depth today. And the truth is actually that businesses in and of themselves don't actually create results. It's people do. It's the people that create the results. And one of my favorite observations about business is this. Your business is a mirror and it reflects the leader that you're being. And with that in mind, what you'll find is that if you as a leader improve your communication, the business communicates better. The business will communicate better. If you improve your decision making, the business will become more decisive. If your leadership improves, your culture will improve. If your standards improve, your business's performance will improve. The business is constantly reflecting back the person that's running it. Now, sometimes we're going to like what we see, sometimes we might not. But either way, the mirror doesn't lie. Which is why I often say, you don't grow your business. Your business grows you. You don't grow your business grows you. Every challenge your business presents you with is asking something of you. It might be asking you to be more courageous. It might be asking you to become more patient, become more disciplined, become a better communicator, become a better leader. The business is constantly inviting you to grow. Now, on my live stream, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I spoke about the hidden operating system that runs every business. And that operating system is the beliefs, the habits, the thinking, the standards, the decisions of the leader. And that means that when most leaders think they've got a business problem, more often than not, they've got an operating system problem. Imagine for a second installing an old software program onto a brand spanking new computer. So let's say you've just gone out and you bought yourself a new Windows computer. And that new computer, in terms of hardware, might be brilliant. You know, it's got loads of memory. It's got the top of the range graphic card. It might have the best processor on the market. But if you were to install, let's say, the old Windows XP operating system onto it, and the XP system was one that worked really well for most people back in the day. But that XP system nowadays is going to limit everything you can do on your brand spanking new computer. And businesses are no different. Your business will never consistently outperform the operating system that's between your ears, which raises a really important question. What operating system is running your business? Because as people, we all tell ourselves stories. As business owners, we tell ourselves stories. As leaders, we tell ourselves stories. So they could go along the lines of, I'm no good with numbers. People won't pay more. There aren't any good staff about. Business is hard. If I want something doing properly, then I have to do it myself. The problem is, if we stop questioning those stories, if we stop being curious, eventually those stories become beliefs. And those beliefs shape our behaviors. So let's give me a for instance. Let's say, for instance, I believe that nobody will pay higher prices. That'll mean that I'll never confidently ask for a higher price in a sales meeting, will it? If I believe no one can do things as good as me, then I'm highly unlikely to delegate. If I believe that growth means working longer hours, guess what I'm going to create? The truth is, our beliefs become a self-fulfilling prophecy. They become our reality. So let me ask you, what stories are you telling yourself? More importantly, are those stories helping you become the leader that your future business needs? Now, the next part of the operating system is standards, not goals, standards, because we don't always get what we want. We usually get what we're prepared to tolerate. And that could be things like late paying customers, poor communication in the business, untidy systems, missed deadlines, people behaving below the level of culture that you want. And if we tolerate any of that, we're teaching people that that's actually acceptable. And that includes teaching ourselves, by the way. But here's the thing. Your standards become your culture. Your standards become your reputation. Your standards become your business. Food for thought, eh? Next in the operating system comes habits, because beliefs shape standards, standards shape habits, and habits create results. So think about your own habits. Think about perhaps the conversations that you might prefer to avoid, the numbers that you might not like looking at, the planning that you choose to skip, the system you'll promise you'll create tomorrow. None of those things tend to happen once. They happen. They don't happen in isolation. They're recurring thoughts, and those recurring thoughts become patterns, and patterns become outcomes. That's one of the reasons why when I'm in a coaching session with a client, I love to ask one simple question towards the end of the coaching session. What's your momentum move this week? What's your momentum move this week? Not 20 things, just one. That could be one habit to install. That could be one improvement to make. That could be one deliberate step forward, because small improvements repeated consistently create extraordinary businesses. Small improvements repeated consistently create extraordinary businesses. And this, for me, is where the magic starts to happen, because a lot of leaders ask, what do I need to do? I think they're asking the wrong question. A better question, a much better question is, who do I need to become? Because every level of business requires a different version of you. The leader who builds a £250,000 business isn't the same leader who builds a £2 million business. It's a different level of thinking. It's a different set of habits. It requires different decisions. It's a totally different identity. And that's why I like the idea of personal best. Not because it's about perfection, not because it's about competing with someone else, but because it's about becoming a slightly better version of yourself than you were yesterday. Your personal best isn't something that you achieve. It's someone you become. It's someone you become. Now, many people think success works like this. I want to have success, and to have success, I need to do some stuff, and then I'll become successful. So it's have, do, be. When I have a bigger business, I'll do the things successful leaders do, then I'll become more confident. But what I've found is that life doesn't work that way. It actually works in reverse. First, you need to become, then you need to do, then you can have. Become a great leader, do what great leaders do consistently, then enjoy the results that great leaders do. Be, do, have. That's the correct order. That's the correct sequence. And this is one of the reasons why I created the Confident Roadmap. And people assume that the roadmap is the sequence for growing a business. And it is. That's right. But it's also the sequence for becoming the leader capable of growing a business. Because every step of the roadmap asks the same question. Who do I need to become next? It might be useful, wouldn't it, if I actually shared the roadmap. Let me just grab it for a second. Just find it. Know exactly the folder it's in. Here it is. Can somebody tell me that when you can see my screen? See that slide? Thank you. Brilliant. So the have is the ideal business. You want to have your ideal business. The 9 steps are what you need to do. But the bigger question is, who do you need to enthusiastically become to implement each of those 9 steps? So step 1 is become clear about where you're going, because if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to know when you get there? Step 2 is become aware of what's going to get in the way. What's stopping you now? What might stop you in the future? Step 3 is become intentional instead of reactive. Plot the course for where you're heading and then follow that path. Step 4 is become financially confident enough to make informed financial decisions. Step 5 is all about becoming valuable to your ideal customers. Step 6 is become systematically consistent and build systems instead of solving every problem personally. Step 7 is become accountable, knowing that you can't improve what you don't measure. Step 8 is to become the leader that people genuinely want to follow. And step 9 is become the leader whose business creates freedom instead of dependency. Now notice something. Every step becomes with you becoming. The business simply follows. 1 second, let me break out of that screen again. I'd like to leave you with one final thought today, and that is that your future business already exists. Your future business already exists. The question is, does the future version of you exist yet? Because every great business is built twice. First in the mind of the leader, then in reality. So as a suggestion this week, instead of asking what do I need to do, ask who do I need to become? Who do I need to become? Because your personal best isn't a destination, it's a decision. It's a decision to improve your beliefs, raise your standards, strengthen your habits, and upgrade your operating system, and become the leader that your future business is waiting for. Okay, if today's session has resonated with you and you'd like to explore what your next personal best looks like, then I'd be delighted to help. So just drop me a message or follow the link in the comments and let's have a conversation where together we'll identify where you are today, where you want to go to, and more importantly, who you need to become to get there. So thank you for joining me again today. I will see you at the same time same place next week. Also keep an eye out because starting next week, I'm going to up the number of lives I'm doing. Until then, have a fun and really profitable week.